In this set of videos, I will show you how to create an InDesign spread for yearbook use, but it can really be used for any kind of layout. So I'm using Creative Cloud here. This is, I think, version 2018, but it shouldn't look much different if you have a newer version, and it looks very similar in the older versions as well. So first thing I want to do is say Create New, and in this next dialog box, I get all kinds of choices. I want to work for print, so I'm going to choose that, and I want a letter size document, which is the right size. And then I want to make sure that I have 2 pages in this document that are facing each other, because I want to make spreads, and I want to make sure they start on an even number. Whether it's 2 or 42 doesn't matter, but if they're even numbers, then you actually have a spreads that are side by side. You can set up columns and margins right in here. But if you click through it and you're on the actual document, I want to make sure that you know how to do it here. So if you go into Layout, Margins and Columns, right here at the top, and this is where you set that up. Now you notice, first I have the guides right now, they're all at 3. If this lock shows locked and I change one of them, all 4 of them will change. So I don't want that. I want to make sure it's unlocked. And I want to set my top to 1p6, 1 pica and 6 points. Oops. And I want to have my bottom at 3, and I want to have my inside margins at 1p6, and I want to have my outside margin at 2. And then I want to use 4 columns. Click 4 columns. And I also want to make sure that my spacing between my columns is also half a pica. So I'm going to click that down to 0p6. And then I say OK, and I've got my columns set up basically. Now for layout, it's very handy to have a grid. So you're going to go View, Grids and Guides, and I'm going to turn on my Show Document Grid. So I see a grid. Now, if I zoom in onto this grid, you'll notice it doesn't line up with my columns, and they're actually a little bit bigger than a half pica space, which is not what I want. So I'm going to go into Edit, Preferences, Grids, right there. Edit, Preferences, Grids. And in here, now you can choose how it's set up. Now, if you notice right here, my document grid is light gray, which is good. If you can't see it, you might need to change this color. But the grid line is every 0p6. Those are the major lines. But the subdivisions are set at 8. And this is why they're not lining up. If I want to have a half pica, I need to make this 12, both in the horizontal and in the vertical. And now if I say OK, you will notice that my grid now lines up perfectly with my columns. And also because of the way I set my margins, it lines up with my margins over here as well as my gutter. So that's a nice setup. Okay, now there's one more handy thing to do. If you go into this, you go into View for Grids and Guides, and you want to make sure the Snap to Document grid is selected. And that means when you create a file or create a picture, if I show you, if I drag this, it will jump and it will snap to the little corner. So it's very easy to lay out stuff. So if I'm taking that corner, I just have to pick it up and it will jump to the right edge. There's always a little pause as I go across. There's just a tiny little snap, and that'll help you with layout. And that's your basic setup for this document.